welcome back to the Flow Show. I'm Joanna Turner, Intuitive Business Mentor, and today I'm here with my lovely friend, Hannah Willow. Welcome.
Hello.
So happy to have you
Hiya.
here. We're going to have a lovely chat. The first time we met, I think we walked around a fairy trail and chatted for about 4 hours. So we're not going to be short of things to talk about today, but I'll read you Hannah's bio in a second and you'll know a little bit more about some of the topics that we're going to be focusing on. So Hannah Willow is a self-published author and illustrator of 3 children's books that inspire young readers to connect meaningfully with nature. Based in the west of Scotland, Hannah is a dedicated early years teacher, a mindfulness and meditation instructor, and a mother of 3. Her work encourages curiosity, creativity, and an appreciation for the natural world among children and educators alike. Hannah also leads women's circles, which is what I go to, where she brings her expertise in mindfulness to empower and support others. Recently crowned the winner of Scotland's tree hugging contest, she is now set to represent the UK in the Global Championship in Finland. Yay!
Yay. What a program.
We might as well just start there, Hannah. Like, you have gone a little bit viral recently. How's that been going?
It's a bit bizarre. Do you know, it's very surreal. It's spread from Scotland all the way down south to the bottom of England. And the more I'm kind of checking myself and going, is this still happening? I was like, 5 minutes of fame. Okay, granted, that's okay from this bizarre sort of event. But it just keeps going. People are just really intrigued by the whole thing. And I think there's a part of them that's a little bit kind of curious about this idea of tree hugging. They just want to know about it. And the presenters from BBC Radio Devon were just really lapping it up. They just absolutely loved the story. So it seems to be sparking something joyful.
And I think we need exactly that right now. So, and I feel like that's and part of your essence really is you have a joyful energy as a sort of you feel like a free spirit to me, which is lovely. And I think that is exactly what the world needs, a little bit more of that. We're all taking ourselves far too seriously. There's far too much war and sadness and all this kind of terrible stuff going on. And I feel like your energy and what you're doing is a lovely antidote to that in a way. I don't know if you've ever thought of it kind of like that.
Yeah.
But
I do feel like that. Yeah. No, I do feel a little bit like that. And I feel like the essence of the tree hugging, or what I want to bring, is that sense of inner child joy, because I think that when we do speak to that in a part of ourselves that wants to be playful and fun and joyful, life can feel so much brighter and more beautiful, and it sparks a magic within us that helps everything just feel a little bit better. And like you said, there's so much going on in the world at the moment, and I catch myself sometimes, because I want to be aware of things that are going on and be present for that. And I do my own kind of mindfulness and form of prayer, I suppose, thinking about people in the greater world sphere that are going through so much at the moment. And I do believe in healing and tapping into this ability to send energy, positive healing energy to places. But I think if we dwell on them so much day to day, like the news tends to kind of drag us down, and we need to try and stay in an elevated energy so that we can be present for the people in our communities around us, and almost like plant that energy within our immediate environment so that that ripples out. And I feel like that butterfly effect does have an impact bigger than we even realize it.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how I think.
And you've been having this beautiful butterfly effect. You were even on Have I Got News for You recently. And you have the funniest video.
No, it's not my fault. Honestly, bizarre thing in the world. I was sitting there with my mum, and I'd told by the photographer who'd taken these photos for the Guardian article that it might be popping up on this, really famous BBC Friday night show that I love. I think it's hilarious, the show. And so we tuned in and watched. My mum decided to record me watching it, and honestly, it was the most hilarious thing ever. I was having a really good belly laugh at the whole thing, tweeted the show presenters just to say, "Coming up to Scotland, I'll give you a really big hug."
I love that. And I'm glad that you can also find the humor in it as well, not take yourself too seriously. And while they were being,
Yeah,
they're taking the mickey, but I think secretly they all want to do it, and feel good enough.
exactly. We all do.
So I do actually, on my daily walks in the park, I quite often do a little bit of I would say tree touching, not full on hugging when I'm just with the dog in the morning. There's too many people I know in the park, and all the regulars would be like, "Oh, she's really lost it this time." But tell me a little bit about more the ethos, the intention behind it.
Yeah, I guess for me, it stems right back to my childhood. I grew up with a really busy family environment. I was one of 8 kids, and I found peace and a sense of okayness about life. I think I was very lucky in where I grew up in West Wales. I was surrounded by nature, but it was really my happy place. My safe place was the woods, and I would, spend hours, literally hours, out in the woods, and I felt very free and very safe and very connected there. And as a child, I think we all do have that just natural connection to nature, and it tends to kind of dwindle and ebb away as we get older and life takes over. But I think I have always maintained a sense of connection with nature in the way that it kind of speaks to me a little bit, and it feels like, well, maybe more so in the last kind of 5 to 10 years, it's almost pulled me back into a deep reverence and spirituality in the way that I am in nature. So I guess the way I approach is not always a full-blown hug with a tree. Sometimes I'll just sit with a tree, and the intention behind it is to just feel that deep sense of connection with the earth. And I do meditate, and I do practice mindfulness, which is all about tuning into your senses, really, smelling the moss beneath your feet, and feeling the roots, and just really immersing yourself in the senses without getting too busy in your mind. And it can be as simple as that, without getting too scientific, but there is so many health benefits to just being out in nature. The phytoncides that are emitted in the trees are anti-carcinogenic, and it's been shown to lower blood pressure just simply by touching wood. They did an experiment between touching wood, metal, plastic, and all sorts of different materials, and wood, even if it's not just a tree, any types of wood, lowers blood pressure. And
Wow.
so there is something really quite powerful, even if you're not, going in for the full-blown hug, just by just connecting with a tree, or even just taking some time to study a flower, or I guess just sit and be. That's my first children's book, was called Just Be, and it's really powerful moment for me to kind of connect children to this wonderful thing that we call Earth, and connecting to our senses. And that's kind of where that first story came from.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I love the health benefits. I've bang on this podcast a lot about grounding and the benefits of grounding, especially in these turbulent times. I think it's even more important. And I was also watching a documentary about the Japanese and how they live in such a, even more than we do, a high-tech world, that they actually, I was going to say, ship people and executives out into the forest for forest bathing adventures and charge quite a lot of money for it. So it could be the start of something wonderful, but it's a real phenomenon, and it's not just airy fairy and let's have a laugh. It's the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, that studies are showing that even in hospitals, for example, just having a picture of something like natural, a nature scene, is shown to help improve patients' well-being, but also their rate to improve in their health. So quite often they'll have pictures of nature up if they haven't got natural landscapes outside, because that's not always possible. But just simply looking at pictures of nature even helps. But obviously, being out in the real thing is so much more beneficial.
I've never heard that about the pictures and the images. And it makes sense why we would have images. I have images of the Scottish hills all over here. So yeah, maybe there's something in that. Must be a reason we want to bring that element into our homes. I hadn't really thought of that before. Interesting.
Yeah, honestly, there's so many wonderful things, and like just recently, I was reading about how plants can sense when their owners are good. So the people who feed them, they can sense before they've even come home when they're on their way back, and they emit like a chemical to try and draw them in because they actually recognize the people that feed them in the way that dogs will recognize when their owners are coming back, kind of a mile
Yeah.
out. The plants do a similar thing. They're very sensitive to people even, and the ones that bring them water and sustenance. Yeah,
Wow. I've never heard that either. That's amazing. That's
yeah.
actually
And The
amazing.
Secret Life of Plants and Trees, great books.
Wow. That's a little bit mind blowing. That's amazing. But and I've absolutely witnessed that in the dog. Like she will run to the front window when I'm anywhere close. But it's a bit of a segue. I was dog sitting for my friend, and I'd had her little dog for 10 days and, plays with my dog and everything, all this kind of stuff. And about probably 4 hours before they were due to come home, she was up at the front window, and she had not been up at the front window looking out the whole 10 days. And I said to my friend, and she said, I think that's
Mhm.
when we were just getting on our flight to come home. So I think the wee dog, all four of them must have thought about her as they were boarding their flight, thinking, "Oh, we'll be home to see the dog soon." And she could sense it, and she was up at the window just waiting for them for that last 4 hours. And I was like, I mean, and
It's amazing.
I think they were in Crete or something. Like they were far away, they weren't just down the road or something. So it's really quite, there's so much that we just have no idea about. Absolutely no idea about.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about where it all started. So what you mentioned, you were part of a big family and you found the stillness in the forest. Yeah, can you share a little bit more about your journey and how you have evolved into this beautiful spiritual place?
Yeah, of course. So I touched on the fact that I was part of a big family. I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which most people know as Mormonism, and it was very much almost like a bubble I lived in for most of my childhood. We lived, breathed, and just everything kind of church. We had our own little community. Obviously, I went to school regularly, but we prayed regularly during the day as a family. We went to regular church activities during the week. I had responsibilities within the church growing up, and it was very much quite a cultural thing that I kind of grew up with, and there were really lots of lovely things about it in terms of the focus it has on the family and various other health principles that it instills. But I felt, there was a part of me that felt spiritual in nature, and I know looking back now I can see how my childhood self felt most connected when I was out in the trees and the woods, and had a very fae-like spirit. I'm very obsessed with fairies my whole life, and used to draw them. I used to talk to them. I used to see them as a child, and I'd paint them. And I even found a little piece of writing the other day in an old box. It was my first encounter with a fairy, and I'd written about this encounter with a fairy. And I think, as I got older, that life happens, and that beautiful innocence and childlike wonder and magic is just kind of slowly, like, things are just thrown on top of that, and you lose sight of those things that really make you, that like that essence of who you are. And I was a good girl growing up. I wanted to do everything by the book. And in Mormonism, there are a lot of commandments, rules, things that you need to follow. It's quite a strict way of living, and there are benefits to following a certain way. It was very much, I knew exactly what to expect. But for my free spirited self, in some ways, I felt quite closed down. And I felt over time, by the end of my 20s, well, actually mid 20s, there was a lot of questions I had. And I ended up leaving Mormonism in my mid 20s, went through a bit of a dark spell where I stopped, praying, and threw everything spiritual out the window because it was too painful for me, because I felt like my whole identity had been broken down and I didn't really know who I was anymore. And then in my late 20s, kind of about 30, it was that point in I think just after my 30th birthday, I started looking at gratitude, and I started writing a gratitude journal, and I started meditating, and I did some yoga. And then slowly but surely I recognized that to be spiritual, you didn't have to be religious. And it was this like light bulb moment for me where I recognized that there was a connection that I was starting to feel with almost like this higher self that I had that was still kind of trying to nudge me back into a sense of connection with something bigger, with something greater. And it came through writing as well. I was doing a lot of journaling again, and art. And it was things like my art and my writing that, I guess for me, because as a very creative person, I found myself again. And I found a great deal of peace and reassurance in being still, going inwards, and really listening to my heart. Because I feel like I had ignored my heart for various reasons. And there were a few, big choices that I had to make over the course of the next sort of few years at that point that really everything started shifting and changing for me, and at times was quite scary, when you're faced with change and suddenly everything starts, relationships start falling away, and you have to make big bold decisions about who you want to be, because that's true to who you are, but it means that things start changing, and I think we get so comfortable with routine and what is familiar that branching out into something different can be quite a scary thing. But what I recognized is that when I was true to myself, when I was true to what my inner wisdom was trying to nudge me towards, that gut instinct, that sense of higher wisdom that comes through when you're still and quiet and really listening, the more I listened to that, the more things started falling into place, and the more opportunities and new people started flowing into my life in a way that was very, you call it magical, synchronistic. But that's when, that things started rolling in a new path. And I started writing my children's books. I started my women's circle. I moved to a new place, moved to, the coast. And it's been a journey and it's not been easy. It really hasn't been easy, but things worth doing that rarely are, completely easy. But within that was a flow. This show is all about finding your flow. And I feel like, just like a river, there'll be parts where it's like kind of rocky and you're not really sure where you're going, and if it's if it's ever going to end. And then there's moments of stillness where the river is just nice and gentle and quiet, and you can take a moment to just breathe and take in the scenery, and then it's fast again and you're not really sure where it's going. But that's kind of how I would liken that whole journey of my life. But there's been so many twists and turns, but I can see the way that it's shaped and evolved me into who I am today, and how I can show up in the world in a new way because of that perspective on the journey. It's almost like I can take that bird's eye view and recognize what those really challenging moments were for, because I can
Absolutely.
I can use them in a way that I can, be there for other people in a different and hopefully more compassionate and loving way.
Absolutely. I think it's so much easier to look back and see, oh, of course, but when you're in it, it's not always easy to understand and be aware of that. And obviously, sort of you've sort of left one fairly strict religious community and went from that to nothing. And I feel like it's almost, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, it's that sort of pendulum when you get pulled so far one way and you let go, sometimes you go all the way over to the other side. So you went from being sort of all in to letting it go completely, and then it's like this the pendulum swung back to the center, to somewhere that's really balanced and where it kind of should be in the end. But I know it's not easy to go through that. And just to sort of honor your journey, because I think you do bring a lot of light into people's lives, and I didn't want to sort of just gloss over the fact that you have been through a few things, and because it's part of the story, and it obviously makes you you. But what do you think the hardest thing was in leaving? What would be the hardest part of that?
Leaving the church. Yeah, I'm a people person. And I think leaving behind the people that I had grown to really love and respect was really, really hard. And I remember being very much hook, line, and sinker in the church and seeing people leave. And it was really painful because when you're in something like the Mormon faith or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day, which is the long version, they prefer that now. Right. There's a sense that you want the best for them, and in that faith, if you're not in it, then you're not necessarily getting that highest degree of not glory, but the heaven at the end of it. And I used to feel really saddened when people would leave because you love them and you want the best for them. But then when it was my turn to find a different path and a different road, I was sad for the people I was leaving behind, because some of my family are deeply faithful in the church, and I love and respect them, and their choices are what feels good to them. And I that's something I will always honor, is people's right to choose what feels good to them and what feels right to them, because I feel like God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to sort of label it as, will find us where we are and will speak to us in the way that feels true for us on our journey and the path that we've chosen to take in this lifetime. And I think that, me choosing to leave, I was sad about them and, the pain they might be feeling because I'd chosen to leave. And I guess there's also a lot of conditioning and things that I'd taken on and stories that I told myself about who I thought I was, that I had to really strip back. And I think because the church has such a high emphasis on the family, there was a real sense of, when I decided to branch out in a different direction, and my relationship within my marriage changed. There's a lot of like guilt and shame that I'm still working through, and that it's a lifelong process when you're healing from things that are held quite deeply within. But I would say the relationships and leaving people behind was probably one of the most painful things.
Absolutely. What would you say? So what I was sort of list is like, you've had to rebuild your identity in a way, because when you're in that culture, you're told who you are, I suppose, and you've then come out and redesigned who Hannah is in a beautiful way. What are some of the tools that you've used or mindset shifts that you've done to shift your identity? Because somebody might not be in the same situation, but they might be changing jobs or careers, or going through a big change as well. What would you say has been really helpful for you in changing that?
Well, I always liken anything. I try and think about nature in the way that I look at myself or any situation, and nature is constantly evolving and changing and growing. And sometimes, like the butterfly, it goes from this caterpillar into the metamorphosis process where it becomes the cocoon and then the butterfly. But I think even at the beginning stage of that caterpillar process, there are these imaginal cells within the caterpillar that knows it's going to be a butterfly at the end. And it's knowing that inside of us, we kind of, our soul knows the journey or the way, but it's about remembering who we are. And I think whilst there is an evolution that takes place during our lives and the changes that are happening, and those, even in the caterpillar analogy, you've got to break down to goo before you start moving into that butterfly phase. And that is incredibly difficult and scary at times, but knowing that there is a greater purpose, or that there's maybe a greater vision beyond that, that is going to evolve from the change and some of the challenges. And I guess, seeing the process as the point, the point is that we are here to learn. And what my belief is that we're here to learn and we're here to grow. And I think, just remembering that as human beings, we come from the earth, and the earth is evolving and changing, and change is good.
Absolutely.
Even if it is a bit scary.
Yes, exactly. And now you're in this new phase of your having some of your tree hugging going a bit viral. How have you handled that? Because it's like you've been catapulted a little bit into the limelight. How have you been navigating that? Has that been easy? Has it been difficult? What's that like?
Yeah, I think initially I was a bit stunned when there was, initially it was the Times wanted to do a little article on it. I thought, oh, that's nice. And then it was the Guardian, and then it was BBC Radio, and then there was more radios, and I've actually lost count of how many different people have wanted. And what I found myself in those situations is remembering why was I doing it in the first place? I loved being out in the trees and being a part of a group of other individuals who were similar minded and doing something that was great fun and just a bit of a giggle, but also deeply within that, like the root of it was this sense of connecting to nature, which is for me fundamentally a core part of who I am is this wanting to be out in the woods and with the trees. And so I suppose when you hear the term tree hugger, it's stereotypically got this like negative hippie kind of connotation behind it. And I think now that I've almost fully embraced that label, how weirdo tends to be something that's negative. And actually, when my kids call me weirdo, I'm like, that's awesome. I love being weird. I love being different. The weirdos are the change makers in the world. And isn't that a wonderful thing?
Yeah.
Dreamers, people, when they say that you're off with the fairies, I'm like, yes, I am. And it's wonderful. And actually, it's those labels that we need to kind of fully embrace and actually just own it and kind of go, yes, this is who I am and I am loving it. I always wanted a fairy tale photo shoot in the woods, and it sounds so ridiculous, but when I got this opportunity to go and prance in the woods with my fairy wings and a little crown on, I was so happy. I was like the inner child in me that just wants to be playful and have fun was given that permission to just be that person. And as much as I think people will kind of just tut and shake their heads, or my kids who will be highly embarrassed, and they think they know I'm a bit of a weirdo and a bit of a hippie anyway, so they're kind of used to it a little bit. But yeah, I suppose it's allowed me that space to kind of go, in The Greatest Showman was like, this is me. Yeah. And it's kind of like, yeah, this is me. I'm not going to shy away anymore in the shadows and think, oh no, I'm too embarrassed. And actually kind of just, I think when we give ourselves permission to be who we are, it gives other people that permission as well.
Absolutely.
And I think, the more we are authentic to ourselves, and it gives other people that sense of courage to step out and kind of go, oh, this is who I am, actually. Not necessarily a tree hugger, but just embracing what brings them joy.
And it's part of, on the podcast this month, we've been talking about shadow work, and it's embracing that part of you that is a bit of a weirdo and a tree hugger, and that's also, even though they bring you joy, it is a little bit of the shadow work, because there's a stigma of some sort attached. Like I'm quite happy now just being like, yes, I am a total hippie and that's okay. So yeah, it's about definitely just embracing all these sides of you, and I just love that. And I do feel like you absolutely embody the fairy vibes. Like not many people could get away with it. You just absolutely, it just suits you. It just absolutely works. And it feels authentic.
I'm owning it.
Also, because you've just been so authentically you, like there's nothing being put on. This is just you being your natural happy self. It's opened up this, I think, because it is so authentic and it's just so you, that I think that's been part of why it's brought the interest as well, because I think we're so not used to seeing people just being so truly authentically themselves and embracing it. So I think it's really lovely. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that.
There's a sense. Yeah, no, I guess it's my pleasure. My pleasure. I mean, I'm grateful for that opportunity to just be a bit joyful and fun. But there's a sentence that came into my head as you were talking there. It's follow your bliss, and it's Joseph Campbell's the hero's journey, and the kind of his like tagline was like follow your bliss, and following your bliss, and it kind of ties in with that idea of flow. Is that when you are doing things that ignite that sense of joy or passion or creativity or whatever it is that's your thing, because I think everybody has a thing, even though I'll sometimes meet people and I say I don't really have any hobbies, or I don't have. Everybody has. You just need to find it. You need to find what your bliss is, what your spark is, and it could be as simple as, you know, being able to listen to somebody and being fully present for them, or it could be like a weird kind of quirk, like stamp collecting, or whatever it is. I mean, everybody's got their thing. You just need to find what it is. Your little sparkle.
That's it. I know.
Your happy thought.
That's it. Absolutely. I was just thinking, yeah, as a kid I used to collect frogs of all things, but I've grown out of that now, thank goodness.
Well, alive ones.
No, like pictures of them, cuddly toy frogs, little figurines, all that kind of stuff. Weird, amazing. But okay. I mean, I have done a lot of different weirdo frog medicines, so maybe that was foreshadowing something. But anyway, that's another rabbit hole. But I'd love to actually talk to you now about planetary grid work. So we connected. I had that big long walk, and then the next thing I came to was the solstice you put on with a beautiful women's circle at the solstice. And it was the first thing I was really doing to connect with women locally on this in spiritual circles, which I just so appreciated, because I had really, everybody else I know is not into it, and they do think I'm crazy, which is also fine. So when I came to your circle, there were some other women there, and it was almost like they're kind of sizing me up in the nicest possible way. But it was like, oh, you do grid work? Yes. Oh, me too. And we just sort of had this, they're like, oh, she does it as well. Oh my goodness, right. So we just had this beautiful connection, and realizing that, because I didn't know if any of you would have even heard of it, because some circles, it's just not a thing. And I was just so excited that you and some of the other ladies were off on these missions doing this work. And it really gave me a sense that, well, one, Scotland is active at the moment, and there were other people out there doing the work, and it obviously I knew it wasn't just me, but it was so nice to connect with others, and we've been swapping notes and sharing our stories and the little clues and along the way, and it's really helped me tie in. Your journey has tied in with my journey, and it's really given me even more of a sense of like those synchronistic moments, and like really letting me feel like, oh, this is definitely, I'm on track. I'm not I'm not imagining this. This is for real. And we've had so many pieces line up between us and within the rest of the ladies in the community that I've just seen what feels like pure magic in moments. And it just alivens everything within me, and I love it. So I would love to hear well, maybe what drew you first to Scotland, and then the work that you've been doing in Scotland.
So I moved to Scotland in 2017. Before that, I was down in the Midlands, and I grew up and lived in Wales I think up until 22, 23, I'm trying to remember, mid-20s. And then, ended up in Scotland in 2017, bought a small holding with my then husband, and we had been developing the land, wanted to be self-sufficient. COVID hit, and things happen, and ended up in Troon, in a lovely coastal town there. And over the course of the last 5 years or so, I had been developing my kind of spirituality and really deepening into what that looked like for me. And one of those things was to reconnect with the land and to understand my connection to it and how the earth speaks. And one of the questions I used to go out on my walks in the evening would be, we all have a language. I want to understand the language of the earth. And I knew that as a child, I would speak to the trees. I would speak to the earth in a way that was just quite normal and natural. And I realized that I'd kind of lost that connection as, I got older, and I began just engaging that part of myself again. And I felt myself being pulled to places. And there are so many special places across Scotland. And I used to get this kind of almost like a seed that was planted in my mind about a place that I wanted to go and visit. One of my first, I would say, big pilgrimages down to Stonehenge, and then across to Glastonbury to visit the land down there. And that was a big initiation for me in this kind of awakening, a spiritual mission. I want to call it a mission, but I had some really quite profound, special dreams about almost rebirthing who I was as a person and what I was here to do, or one of my like side hustles in the spiritual world, which was to be
Just add on something else.
I'm not quite sure how to. Just along with my other things. No, and I felt very drawn to visiting ancient sites. Went to Kilmartin Glen. I would go to various places along the coastline. And when I was there, I just had this awareness that land holds energy, it holds memory, and there are certain places, pockets in the land that seem to have significance, a bit like our body holds meridians or energy lines. The earth has a similar system. And this is something that I didn't really know from reading anything. I wasn't really reading books necessarily. I'd been kind of listening to podcasts and kind of following a shamanic I guess, investigation. I suppose I was really intrigued by Native American wisdom and Celtic. I was suddenly diving into Celtic wisdom and, ancient Druidic practices, and just reading up a little bit about the folklore contained in different stories. And the more I spent time in nature, just simply being and listening, the more I felt these almost like messages coming through, and I'd write them down, or I'd draw pictures of what I was feeling or seeing in my mind's eye. And I recognized that it was almost like the land was calling and asking me to take some time to, I guess, channel light energy is what I call it. It was almost like I was bringing the light or energy of the stars and the cosmos, of that bright light, and I was using myself as almost like a channel to bring that through into the earth, and a bit like you would with if you went to Reiki or any kind of energy healing. The hands are used as a way to channel energy into the body and to move blockages, almost like if you saw a river and it was stagnant and it wasn't flowing. That's kind of what the Reiki is there to kind of move and shift blockages. And I've had really wonderful healing experiences with both Reiki and something called Shiatsu, which is to kind of keep that flow of energy moving through your body. And I suppose what I was recognizing that I was there doing a similar kind of thing, but with land, when there is something terrible that happens, a war or an ancient battle that's happened in a place, that energy and that memory is stored in the land. And what I saw myself doing was almost bringing healing to those places and to that blockage in the land. I guess, some people call it prayer, some people call it, channeling light. However you want to label it. For me, it was just allowing myself to be an instrument for something to come into and heal the land through my intention and through, bringing that sense of connection from somewhere beyond and in through my body and into the land. And that's kind of something that I've been doing for the last 3 to 4 years, I would say, more regularly. And I have a real deep connection with Scotland from my mother's line. So my mother, all the way back, are from the north of Scotland. And just recently in the summer, I had quite a strong feeling that I needed to go and connect and work with the land up in the north of Scotland. And I'm lucky enough that my aunties, my mum's sisters, have still got the cottage that my granny was born in, and also nearby is all of my great granny's kind of family land, the old derelict farm that is there. And so, in fact, just bring it kind of full circle to what you were saying about connecting with the women's circle. In August, it was the 888 portal, and we had our women's circle on the 1st of August, and it was it was the 1st of August, and it was 8 women that came to the circle just spontaneously, as it kind of just happened that way. Of course, it always is. We did a lovely ceremony, a creative Leo-based gathering where we did lots of creative things, and we put our intention into the water, and I took the offerings and sacred things that we did during that circle with me to the north of Scotland, and I gave it as an offering in Orkney on the 8th of the 8th, during that 8/8 portal, which is all about bringing. In fact, you could probably explain it better than I think you did do a podcast on the 8/8 portal, didn't you?
I talked a little bit
recently?
about it. I might have even mentioned it. Honestly, I can't even remember what I've said on half of these episodes. But you were off doing that up in Orkney, and it's part of the Scottish pentagram.
Uh-huh.
And I loved that we'd connected on
That's right.
the 1st of August, and I had put my intention in
Mhm.
the water you were taking up as an offering. And my intention was to heal time. Everybody put different intentions into it. And you were up, your family home, I think, is on another one of the other top points of the Scottish pentagram. And Orkney is another point on the Scottish pentagram. So you were away up doing that beautiful work up there. And it was just a lovely connection. And there was a lot of dragon energy about, and I think rose energy as well then. I think that was they were the two other themes.
I felt very, very connected. And there was a lot of ancestral work for me. I was staying obviously in an ancestral home, and I was looking at old photographs of my ancestors, and I was going to places that they, there were photos of these children swimming in lochs from ages ago, generations back, and I was doing the same thing, and it felt very connected, like I was connecting dots, and I was bringing timelines together. It was really lovely. And then at the last women's circle we had on the Samhain, was it the 1st of November, there was another little lovely link for you in terms of there were 11 women at the circle, and you're going to do some work on the 11/11 with something separate, but we were able to do a similar thing where we were putting our intention and our loving energy into the water, this kind of sacred water, and you're going to then take that with you when you go and do your thing. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I'm going up this weekend. I think I have mentioned it already, but I feel very blessed to have this water with the intention of the 11 women on this 11 portal. And I brought the beautiful rose we got, and what else do I have? Oh, the candle and some other bits from you as well. So I feel very lucky to have these, and I will take them as an offering with me this week. So I just love that connection, and I love that you were up there healing time and within your ancestral lines, and it really links in with the theme of what's happening. I was just talking to the girl Julia Weigart, whose podcast I was on, and she's going to be in Geneva on the 10/11, and we were talking at the all about clocks, and you'd had an experience with that, and she has been called to go to the world's largest clock and watch museum on the 10/11.
Wow.
So Geneva's all about time, about healing time, and that she's going to this museum the day before, and she said, I think I'm going there to sort of set up whatever is happening on the 11/11. And I reminded her about our court story from the women's circle. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about that, because it was just one of those moments. I was like, wait, what? And so I'd actually gone, and I was tuning in myself today about what else I need to bring from my like spiritual tool bag with me. And I have this big quartz obelisk-y type, that big fat chunky one. And I just remembered today, I was like, oh, I had that when I did my work at Stonehenge. I had that with me, and it's a big fat one. So I'm going to take that with me as well. It feels very important that that specific crystal comes with me. It's I don't really know, you just have this knowing that that's what I need to take. Like, no, it's hard to explain, but yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those stories that happened at the women's circle? It was just, you just bring the right people together.
Well,
it's magic.
It seems to just things happen, and one of the things that I've come to learn to trust is whoever's meant to be at the circles will be there, and it's almost like there are connections that are made during those circles that they need to sort of meet each other for whatever reason. And actually, one of a kind of slightly funny side story is that the way I met one of the women's circle, who's a lovely Reiki healer, is that we actually collided on the road where our wing mirrors hit each other. Literally collided on the road. It was like a divine collision, and we've been firm friends ever since. We were the
Joyce.
nicest people to each other after that point. It's like, oh.
If I ever
Anyway,
crashed
so that
into
was a funny
anybody,
kind
I
of
would want to
interaction.
crash into you or Joyce, and because you're just so, I can imagine you'd be just hugging in the middle of the road, being like, "Oh, it's all right, it's okay."
Yeah, we were just so nice to each other. It was lovely. But yeah, it's the quartz is an interesting one, because for the last few years, without really knowing why, I just felt intuitively that there was something very special about these little white quartz crystal. And I started gathering them on, I think it was Findhorn. One time I was there with the kids, and there were these lovely, really white quartz on the beach, and I felt very strongly that I had to bring them with me and use them for something, and I didn't really know what. And then over the course of the next few years, I would go to these sacred or particular sites that I was working with, and I would leave one of these quartz stones as a kind of offering.
Nice.
When I was working there. And it was, for me, it represented this idea of a seed of light, holding this energy that was creating this map in the land, and they were kind of connected to each other somehow. I wasn't really sure what was going on at the time. And yeah, more recently, and obviously quartz is used all the time within mechanical, in phones and in watches and all sorts of things. There's something very special about them.
It holds memory.
Yeah, it's got all sorts of wonderful properties. And something I didn't realize until the recent women's circle was the way that if you strike quartz together, it creates light in a very special way. So we were experimenting with these two quartz crystals of the women's circle, and we were banging them off each other, and they would just create this wonderful, wonderful light. So during the women's circle, there was two women who had both walked from almost the exact same location in the town, both carrying a quartz crystal in their pockets, unbeknownst to each other. And one of them, who was brand new to the circle, who hadn't been before, had this French sentence going on in her head. I think it was the French sentence for "it's in my pocket." And she didn't really speak French. She just had very basic kind of high school level French. And when she got to the circle, there was a French lady who had come to the circle as well, and had been carrying a white quartz crystal in her pocket, and pulled it out and kind of told, before she pulled it out, this sentence had come out, and she said, "Do you know what this sentence means?" And she said, "Oh, it's in my pocket." And she pulled out what this quartz crystal, and they both had collected a stone a few days before and had them in their pockets that evening. So just very random, very synchronistic, and just very wonderfully magical.
That really just blew my mind. I was like, wait, you've been having it, not even just those words, but those words in French on your way here, and then you meet this girl who's it was too much. I was like, that was just beautiful.
Yeah,
I loved that.
Yeah, it was wonderful though. It was just kind of...
And I think I need to.
I love things like that.
Absolutely. And then I went back to Julia, who's going to be in this watch and clock museum, working with the time and like literally time and healing it. And I brought the quartz to her, and I was like, because she hadn't really considered quartz being connected. And so she's like, "Oh, that's a missing piece of the puzzle for me. Brilliant." And so we were able to then bring that piece to her, and it all just sort of creates this beautiful loop and a deeper understanding of what on earth is going on, even though I've got no idea what's really going on. So
no, I don't think we in the end we just really do. But I think what's lovely is that the way that people connect each other's dots, it's almost like we have little pieces of the puzzle for each other, and we kind of help each other. And I think for me, that's been a big part of my journey, is recognizing that we're not here to do it alone. We're here to help each other, to support each other, and to reconnect. And part of why I feel like one of my purposes is to reconnect people with nature. And this whole going back to the tree hugging thing is, yes, I'm doing it in a very kind of obvious tree hugging kind of way, but actually the great mother, Gaia, is calling us to return to her. We've become so disconnected from nature and from what it means to be human and connected to the earth. I've started wearing barefoot shoes. My mum actually gifted me her barefoot shoes, and just even simply wearing those and feeling more grounded day to day. And in the morning, I'll go and sit under my cherry tree in the garden, and I'll sit and I'll be mindful, and I'll listen to the birds, and just breathe and feel like I'm breathing in and out with the earth and becoming at one with my immediate space around me, but also on a deeper level, just with everybody, you know, with humanity, because there's so much disconnection. And I think if we feel a sense of reconnection within ourselves and with the earth, then that does then have this wonderful ripple effect. And I think that it starts inside of us. And if we can connect ourselves to a greater sense of purpose and place, that will then help us to feel a greater connection with the whole.
Beautiful. And I love that
I hope
you
that makes
do this by helping us adults as well, but also you do a lot of work with children, teaching them about mindfulness. You've obviously written your children's books and you take your children on some of these adventures. How do you feel about weaving part of the, I suppose, mindfulness and into future?
So I absolutely love what I do as an early years teacher. I spend a lot of time with very young children, and they are so very connected with being very in the moment and very curious and looking for little things that they can get so immersed in, like a rock or a branch of a tree. For me, you know, writing my children's books is all about connecting with nature. And I guess for my inner child, I was writing it for my inner child, but also, you know, to help children to remember, not to lose this sense of connection with nature. And with my own children, who are, you know, getting older now, you know, the 10, 13 and 14. And I guess I'm really scared that they're going to, well, I guess everybody does when they get to that age, you know, they lose touch with that sense of wonder and play and magic. And my hope is that, or one of the things I hope that they take from the way that I parent is this sense of adventure and connecting with nature. And so something I've always tried to do with them is to take them to places that are wild. And we went on this lovely summer adventure just in July, where I gave them all a challenge. It was a little chest with a tiny little key and a letter that talked about opening up a portal in time to call back the nature spirits and invite greater wonder and magic into the world. And we were to plant those in 3 different places that we were visiting. And so each one had a different box. And so one of them was near Rosslyn Chapel near Edinburgh. And we found a beautiful tree that we could hide it in the nook of, and hopefully people walking by might find it. And then there was another one on the Holy Isle off of Northumberland coast, and another one in near Alnwick Castle, which actually we discovered was a tree planted by the Queen 100 years ago. I think it's Queen Victoria or something. So it was like the Queen tree, and this letter inside is all about inviting the Queen of the Fairies to help us heal our world again. So each of them were, I suppose, given this permission to be magical and full of wonder at the possibilities. And I hope that people who may find this letter in the chest and the little key inside the chest, that reignites something inside them. It's like it unlocks a little part of themselves that is childlike and wonders and believes in magic and fairies. And I guess it was just trying to bring my children into that sense of connecting the dots in a different kind of way and bringing people along for the adventure. That was my little way of weaving in the way that I love to connect with nature and the land in a way that was hopefully accessible for them. My daughter wasn't overly impressed by the whole thing. My boys bought into it and they really enjoyed it. So
she's just getting to that too cool stage, but
really, I tried to take them to the Standing Stones on Arran. I think it was a year or so ago, and they were just not impressed. They're like, "When do we go back to the car?" I just want to come and stand by the stones. I'm like, nah. Stones,
oh
mommy.
My god, I just love that they've been part of that. And Rosslyn Chapel's been a big pull for me, and I love you've gone there and done your work. And I just love that. So it makes me feel way more connected and yeah, I really appreciate you for what you do, and for the community that you've built around here as well. It's really, like, it's always just really nice people that show up. Obviously, you're a lovely person, so I think that's reflected. And I think one of the women, when we were just sort of all getting settled in and ready, I think that is exactly what she said. She was like, yeah, like, we're all just, nobody's like horrible, it's like nobody's sort of looking at each other sideways, or we're just all there and quite open, and just happy to be connecting. So I really appreciate you for bringing that together. What are you working on at the moment? What's the next chapter for you? I know you've got a book out, and Finland's coming up. Tell us a little bit about
I've got a couple of books.
What you've got going on.
The next year, I think. Yeah, so the next year or so, I have a few intentions, some goals, I suppose. I don't really like that word, but some visions. I would really love to bring out a follow-up to my last children's book, which was all about finding Mother Earth. And the next one will be about Mother Earth's letters to her children and how she wants them to reconnect with nature, and what we can do to do that. It's a bit kind of based on Native American prayers kind of
Beautiful.
language. So I've got a book churning there, and I also want to do a collaborative book with children and get them to create wishes for the world and have their ideas of dreaming a new world into being.
Beautiful.
So I'm working on a little project. It's just in the initial stages at the moment. So I'm hopefully going to bring that to life over the next year or so. And I've got a project that I'm doing within my kind of teacher hat life, where I'm going to schools dressed as a fairy. It's the best thing ever. Dressed as a fairy, teaching them about looking after the animals in the forest by not littering and things like that. So that's kind of on the side as well. But I have this I have this dream of creating a community based business company that allows me to be more present within the community, to do these kinds of women's circles and mindfulness groups with kind of this donation-based approach, where anybody can access these groups and this connection with others without this burden of like the finances. Because I know I've been in a position where it's hard, and the current economic climate is just all over the place. So my dream is to create a community based on helping each other and just being there for each other and utilizing each other's skills. And so I'm just in that initial process of trying to create this kick company, which will all be about reaching out to the local community and supporting and bringing a little bit of magic, a little bit of support, connection, and hopefully some engagement with being out in nature and using that as a tool for healing and as a tool for bringing grounding and peace into people's lives. I think that's where I'm going.
Beautiful. And you also have a little what are they called? Is it GoFundMe? What are they called? Is that what they're called?
GoFundMe. My sister set that up.
For getting you to Finland next year to represent. Tell us about it.
My bless, because I said earlier that I'm one of 8 kids, so I have a really genuine, like, they're my best friends. I'm so lucky to have the siblings that I do, and she jumped on this sort of like viral media wave and put out a GoFundMe page, and it's doing quite well, and I think I'm going to get over there and I'm really excited.
It to Finland.
To Finland, yay! I'm so excited. But yeah, I think at the moment I'm actually trying to get in touch with the other contestants through the organization that run this contest every year, and I want us all to club together to adopt a tree, one particular tree, and connect to the tree before we even go. So there's this one tree that we all kind of know before we go.
That's a lovely idea, and that's for the World Championship tree hugging contest in Finland next summer.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, next August. Yeah,
I will find the link and put it in the show notes if anyone wants to support you in that mission to get yourself to Finland, to represent the trees and nature, and that would be fabulous. Is there anything else? What's the best places to find you? I'll link them in the show notes. Where are you most active?
Probably Instagram. I have an Instagram. YouTube, I have Willow Tree Wishes is something I do lots of guided meditations and other things that I put up on my YouTube link, and I have a Facebook Willow Tree Wishes page. So yeah, probably Instagram Willow Tree Wishes,
Beautiful.
YouTube, and Facebook
where's the best place?
And I'm now on X /
Oh, nice. And what's the best place to find your children's books and buy those for maybe a Christmas present? Mindful Christmas present.
Yes, that would be amazing. And actually, every book soul plants a tree.
Oh, I love that. Of course it does.
So I have, yeah, of course it does. The Child with No Name is a book that's available on Amazon and through Anderach. Forest Therapies is supplying it, and you can buy it directly through me, through messaging me. You can also, if you want a signed copy, just message me and I'll send you one directly. Yeah. I think that's probably the best way, Amazon, or directly message me and I can send you a signed copy.
Wonderful. That's so kind. Yeah, thank you so much. I just love talking to you and your energy, and I just appreciate what you're doing, and thank you so much for having been here.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast. As always, we really appreciate any likes, shares, subscriptions, and especially 5-star reviews on Spotify. That would be amazing. Thank you so much. And also just a quick reminder that the Spooky Season Shadow Work Special is still available. It's a 3-session pack, and you can check out the details in the show notes, but it would be definitely, if you are looking to do some inner work, some shadow work, to take the skeletons out of the closet, as it were. We're in a really beautiful time in this spooky season, all the way up until the 19th of November. It's especially potent time to do this work as Pluto has its last time in Capricorn for 20 years. We're coming into a new age. It's time to enter it and really create massive shifts in our life. So it can be for any part of your journey. Obviously, I do a lot of work around people's businesses, helping them become more confident, more visible, clear money blocks, that kind of thing. But we can also look at just old patterns, limiting beliefs, anything like that you might feel is holding you back in your life or your business. And it might be fear of success. It might be that you've not been hitting your goals. You might have some imposter syndrome going on. Whatever that looks like, we could definitely have a look at it. I work usually with the Akashic Records, and it is a beautiful tool to help us get to the root cause of what's going on very quickly. It takes us right there, and we can really sort of pull out that thread of the thing that's been holding you back from its roots, and it can often have an impact in lots of different areas of your life. So if that sounds interesting, check out the show notes and you'll find a link to have a look at it. If you have any questions, please let me know. The 3 sessions are an hour long each, and be in contact and have some support in between. And I would love to work with you. Or if you do want to discuss any kind of longer coaching containers or things like that, there is always the opportunity to have a consultation with me. They are free, but I do ask that you are seriously looking for a business coach if you do want to jump on one of those complimentary calls. All right, thank you so much. I will see you in the next episode. I am heading on Sunday up to Inverness to do my work up there, and I am going to try my best to vlog it. I'm not a vlogger, but I will definitely do a lot of Instagram stories. So if you do want to follow my journey over at that portal, definitely check that out. I will pop the link to my Instagram in the show notes. And also, if you are following along this planetary grid work journey, you might have a piece of the puzzle that needs to be slotted in for this beautiful 1111 portal. So you can definitely tune in at that same time as I will be in Clavacairns with the meditation that is on the channel. I think it was episode 40, so just the one before this one, I think, or the one before that. And yeah, follow along at that same time. And if you are doing it, please reach out, let me know on Instagram. I would love to hear your story, where you are, what you're doing for this portal, and who knows, it might just all weave in another part of the picture for us all together, because I am not doing this work alone. It would be far too much. Obviously we've got the likes of Hannah will be doing something beautiful, I'm sure, but I would love all the help I can get to do some work. So let me know. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.